welcome to Joy of Books with me, Miss Joy. Today's offering is The Decision Points by George W. Bush. Released in 2010 and totaling 481 pages, this is a memoir from the former President of the United States of America. It was a big seller with over 2 million copies being sold within the first 2 months of its release. So, Tsitsi, how did this stack up against the popular public perception of this much maligned figure from modern history?
As expected, Miss Joy, as expected. As you quite rightly stated, Bush is not everybody's cup of tea. I don't think he's viewed with any sort of affection by people outside of the USA, certainly. Even with my limited understanding of American politics, my understanding is that about half of America also are not so keen on him. And I think the statistics in his own book show this. He talks, for example, about the Florida legal issues that he had when he actually lost the popular vote. So it does show how close the battle for his presidency was back then. The book has 14 chapters and it's a little bit different, and I'll give credit where it's due. It doesn't start out, I was born in here, and this is my childhood, and I did this and I did that. It kind of skips over that, which I think we can be grateful for. The first chapter does grab you. It's actually entitled Quitting, and it's about his decision to stop drinking. I thought that was an interesting and quite a brave choice for an opening chapter. Now, the cynic in me might say, he did this so that straight away he, garnered sympathy from the reader, but he wasn't a former president of USA. Who am I to question that? But certainly it's a bold opening chapter. So he couldn't remember, for example, how many days it had been since he last didn't have a drink when his wife kind of asked him the question. So he could see that there was an issue, although he doesn't necessarily admit to having been an alcoholic or been dependent on alcohol, but certainly you could see that it would stop him from achieving his goals. So credit where it's due, as I say. Next chapter is about running. So a dual meaning there. He loves running for exercise. He used to do it to kind of get rid of the alcohol, but of course, runs for the health benefits, but also the double meaning, running for governor of Texas and of course then president. So the first two chapters, and the rest, as the title of the book suggests, are about these key decision points in his time in office. Of course, the major ones would be that the 9/11 and everything that surrounded that horrific part of contemporary history. The aftermath of that, so he talks about Afghanistan, Iraq as well. Then a little bit more close to home, he talks about Hurricane Katrina. He talks about the stem cell research and the financial crisis and eventual bailout in 2008. So that's a real skeleton of the book. He also talks a little bit about domestic issues such as Medicare, and he also refers to the education plans. And I think "No Child Left Behind" was the kind of his key kind of slogan there. So quite good in terms of the layout of the book. I've read quite a lot of biographies, and certainly autobiographies, and they do tend to be formulaic. So I did like that this one wasn't quite so. And it's a hefty book, coming in at almost 500 pages. It's a big read. So there is a lot of detail around these key times in his term in office. At times, if I'm talking about things that I didn't like so much, but he came across a little bit privileged. But then if you're the son of a former president of the United States of America, then I guess that's your right. He doesn't want for money. So I don't want to say he was blasé about things, but of course, people from different working classes and backgrounds. So you just felt that he was kind of ushered in, this idea of the old boys network. He always had a pal or somebody he could call up on to get him into a job. So yeah, jobs for the boys is a little bit when I was looking at how he kind of constructed his first cabinet team. There are times where I did feel a little bit sorry for him. Okay, I know that he lists his biggest failure as not capturing Osama bin Laden, but of course, at that time, it was notoriously difficult to do so, not knowing that much about him and where he would be located. Barack Obama was the person who was the president who did manage to capture bin Laden, well, not capture, but to take down bin Laden, if you like. But yeah, I can see that with regard to Bush, he would have put a real full stop under his time in office for sure had he done that. So yeah, I do appreciate his honesty with that. On occasions, I felt that he deflected blame as well. He used the term blindsided a couple of times when referring to his office staff, which maybe if that's something that he genuinely felt, that's fair enough. But not always a good thing to deflect blame, perhaps for what might be seen as his own shortcomings. There were a couple of interesting parts. I really liked his honesty with regard to Iraq. There's no love for Gerhard Schroeder, Chancellor of Germany, because Bush felt that Germany didn't support him fully with Iraq. He also talks of Schroeder as being potentially corrupt. In fact, he's the chair of the board of Gazprom, and of course they're linked to Vladimir Putin. And he speaks with a lot of caution about Putin. And if you think about when this book was written in 2010, 10, 15 years later, look at what Putin is doing. You can see that Bush had quite an accurate read on that world figure, which is interesting. So I would say, it's not the greatest book, and because of the length of it, I couldn't say that I would wholeheartedly recommend it. But if American politics is your thing, or if you want to get more of an insight into the present side of 9/11, for example, which I did really think that was the key chapter of this book, possibly worth reading it just for that chapter. I would say it's quite an insight into the idea that he was on Air Force One up in the air. He wanted to go back to Washington. His advisors advised against that. But he felt it's important to be there. All sorts of things going on, and the idea that up in Air Force One, he was really cut off communications-wise from what was happening on that fateful day in New York. So that is a very good chapter, to be fair. I'd like to say overall, not the best book, not the most particularly well-written book either. Like I say, if you're a Bush fan or you want to gain a bit of insight into American politics, go for it.
Thank you for your insightful reflection, Cici. It sounds like a good read, at least for Bush supporters. Decision Points by George W. Bush is, however, still available from all good book outlets.